On this Saturday night, the intense manhunt for a Quebec father. The bodies of two young girls are found, but where is their dad? The Stanley Cup final in the fall, plus another record of COVID-19 cases in the United States, and remembering the standoff known as the Oka crisis.
Global National with Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with breaking news out of Quebec. There is a tragic end to an Amber Alert. Police confirm they've found the bodies of two young girls, Romy and Norah Carpentier, who went missing this week with their father. The bodies were found near the community of Saint-Apollinaire, about 40 kilometers southwest of Quebec City. Their father is now the subject of a police manhunt. Mike Armstrong is following the story for us tonight.
After days of intense searching, police found one girl, then another a short while later in the same area.
L'alerte Amber est maintenant terminée.
Then the announcement from police, the longest Amber Alert in the province's history, was lifted. Police say the two girls were found lifeless, 6-year-old Romy and 11-year-old Norah. The search is now a manhunt, frantic at times. This was video shot by a local resident after what he described as a sighting in the forest. Now, the woods in the area are dense. Police have tried to cordon off and search the area, hoping to find the father, 44-year-old Martin Carpentier. The three had been missing since Wednesday night, last seen around 8:30. The girls were believed to have been abducted by their father and in danger. The Amber Alert was issued Thursday. The girls were found about 25 kilometers from where they disappeared. Quebec Premier François Legault reacted to the sad developments with a series of tweets Saturday. Like all Quebecers, he says he's shocked, calling it a national tragedy.
Up until this morning, we felt that there was good information that had come in the past few days. So we were really hopeful that those two young sisters would have been found alive.
Police are asking that anyone in the area go online to look at the photo of the father so they know what he looks like and to call 911 if they see him or anything suspicious. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Toronto police say a 6-month-old baby girl and a 4-year-old boy are both expected to recover after being stabbed. Investigators say they were called to the scene of an apartment building this morning and found the injured children inside. They were rushed to hospital with serious injuries. One of the children underwent surgery today. They're both now in stable condition. Their 36-year-old mother has been arrested. After months of negotiations, the NHL is coming back, and it will call Canada home. A return-to-play plan has been ratified, with Toronto and Edmonton hosting as hub cities. Caryn Lieberman reports on how the NHL hopes to pull it off without risking the health of its players or the public.
There will be plenty of action on the ice in Toronto and Edmonton as the National Hockey League resumes its pandemic-delayed season August 1st.
Basically, you're going to have healthy lineups. I think the guys will be energized. Certainly the fan component will be strange for everyone.
The NHL and NHL Players Association announced they ratified return-to-play protocols. They include 2 hub cities in Canada where coronavirus infection rates remain largely under control, and a 4-year extension to the current collective bargaining agreement.
To get through it for the good of our constituents and the good of the game, and for the good of our fans, we needed to work together.
Players have until Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern to declare they are opting out of the NHL's ready-to-play program. Calgary Flames defenseman Travis Hamonic is putting family ahead of the game. His daughter contracted a serious respiratory virus last year, so he's chosen to stay out of the program.
Once in Toronto and Edmonton, players will be kept in bubbles, confined mostly to hotels and empty arenas, undergoing daily testing.
No bubble is airtight. Leaks happen.
Experts from the medical community point out while the risk may be low, should a player contract the virus, the consequences of spreading it could be serious.
What are the longer term side effects or consequences to that individual? And now we're talking about many, many people within that bubble.
The pandemic has taken a toll on tourism in Toronto, so the mayor of Canada's largest city is encouraged by the financial benefit of being a hub.
When you have empty hotels and hotel workers out of work, and when you have catering companies and other people who have been really struggling, I think it is going to make a positive difference.
For fans, a return to the ice this summer is welcome news.
Hockey's hockey, and we want to watch hockey any time of year, don't we? Yeah, I'll watch. 100% I'll watch.
From the comfort of home, since fans are not allowed to attend.
The major thing is ask the players, what's it going to be like for them playing without any fans cheering them on?
Not the most traditional playoffs. Caryn Lieberman, Global News, Toronto.
NHL athletes are also set to make another comeback, returning to the Winter Olympics in both 2022 and 2026. The decision comes as part of terms in the tentative agreement between league owners and players to restart this year's hockey season. In 2018, NHL players were unable to attend the Pyeongchang Olympics because the league refused to disrupt its season for that year. The Conservatives say they won't topple Justin Trudeau's minority government, but they want a criminal investigation into his family's connection with We Charity. The organization was tapped with monitoring a $900 million grant program. And now the Ethics Commissioner is investigating.
We believe that there is sufficient grounds here for them to take a look at the criminal code and take a look at the events that have been unfolding over the last 2 weeks. Look, we have a nearly $1 billion sole-sourced contract being awarded to an organization with direct ties to the Liberal Party of Canada and to the family of Justin Trudeau and ties to him himself.
The charity says it paid Margaret Trudeau, the Prime Minister's mother, about $250,000 for approximately 28 speaking engagements. It also paid Alexandre Trudeau, the Prime Minister's brother, $32,000 for 8 appearances. We says the Prime Minister's wife was paid $1,400 for one event and has volunteered for many others.
The Prime Minister is not privy to all of the to's and fro's of what his mother is or is not engaging on, nor whether she's receiving financial compensation. But the other thing I would point out, and I think it's important for your viewers, is that a traditional conflict of interest analysis is looking at when there's some pecuniary gain that's being procured, usually in a business setting. This is a not-for-profit organization that we were proposing to use to administer a program.
And you can get more details tomorrow on the West Block. I'll be sitting in for Mercedes Stevenson. For the first time since the pandemic began, the U.S. president has worn a mask in public. Donald Trump visited a military hospital in Maryland this afternoon. He was accompanied by military leaders and staff, all wearing masks. Face coverings are mandatory inside the hospital when safe social distances cannot be maintained. Trump has previously declined to wear masks. The president's change of heart comes after the U.S. broke another daily record for new COVID-19 cases. More than 70,000 people tested positive in one day. Florida, South Carolina, Mississippi, and Texas are all reporting bed shortages in intensive care. There's growing concern the increase in hospitalizations could lead to a spike in deaths. As Jennifer Johnson explains, more than half the states are now rolling back or putting their ease-back plans on hold.
As the U.S. hits another record high for new cases of COVID-19,
oh, look at the carousel!
Disney World, known as the most magical place on Earth, reopens in hard-hit Florida. Limited tickets are sold out through July. The theme park closed 16 weeks ago, losing about $4 billion.
It was a little strange, because you're so used to seeing all the cast members and their smiles and everything.
The hospitalization rate in Florida has broken a state record. At least 7 hospitals in South Florida are out of ICU beds.
Getting you some medicines.
Texas, Arizona, and South Carolina have all seen their death tolls from COVID-19 rise by more than 100% in the past 4 weeks. 1 in 5 people hospitalized with the virus in South Carolina is under the age of 30.
One of our patients that was the sickest for the longest period of time and had gone through so much. He was an otherwise healthy person, young, and still didn't survive this.
The situation is so dire in California, the governor is releasing 8,000 prisoners early to prevent outbreaks.
We're evaluating every prisoner for release, that they are on a pathway to rehabilitation, that they are nonviolent, non-sex offender.
In dozens of states, people who want to get tested for the virus are forced to wait for hours, results taking up to 10 days to get back. In Iowa, there are no tests available. The state has run out of them.
We tried to get a test Wednesday, and it said that there was nowhere, not anywhere in the state of Iowa.
Over a dozen states have paused or rolled back their reopenings. Bars in Las Vegas are the latest to take the hit, forced to close again.
We have followed the rules every step of the way, just not fair.
U.S. President Donald Trump insists things will be under control quickly. But a new ABC News Ipsos poll shows an overwhelming number of people are frustrated. 67% of Americans now say they disapprove of how the president has handled this pandemic. Jennifer Johnson, Global News, Washington.
Dozens of U.S. Marines in Japan have tested positive for COVID-19. According to local media reports, about 60 people at 2 bases on the island of Okinawa have become infected. Okinawa's governor is demanding an explanation from the American military about the outbreak. He's concerned the U.S. may not be taking adequate prevention measures. The Japanese island is home to more than 25,000 American troops. Tropical storm Faye has now weakened into a post-tropical cyclone, but the system is still causing chaos along the U.S. East Coast. Faye made landfall yesterday in New Jersey, packing powerful winds and lots of rain. The storm flooded streets and shut down local beaches. Faye is now heading north. It's expected to bring heavy rainfall to southern Quebec today before dissipating tomorrow. In South Africa, at least 5 people are dead after a hostage crisis at a church. Local police say they found 4 bodies in one car and the body of a security guard in another. Officers then rescued men, women, and children who had been held hostage and appeared to be living at the church. More than 40 people have been arrested. It's believed the attack was motivated by an internal feud between church members. Still to come, the lessons from the Oka crisis. Today marks the 30th anniversary of the beginning of the Oka crisis. What started with the proposed expansion of a golf course west of Montreal turned into a 78-day standoff that has left a permanent mark on Canada. As Dan Spector reports, decades later, the issues that launched the crisis still aren't resolved.
The Oka crisis may be 30 years in the past, but the message from the Mohawk people of Ganasatake remains the same.
Land back. We want our land back.
In the spring of 1990, Mohawks erected a barricade in a wooded area called the Pines, protesting the proposed expansion of a golf course by the town of Oka onto ancestral native lands. On July 11, 1990, provincial police moved in to break up the blockade. A firefight ensued, and 31-year-old Corporal Marcel Lemay was killed. A 78-day standoff between Mohawks, the police, and the Canadian Army began. Ellen Gabriel was there.
It was the women that went to the front, and we weren't armed. We had our hands in the air, and this SWAT team was pointing their weapons at our heads and our hearts.
This anniversary of the Oka crisis looked different than past commemorations. Instead of going through Oka on foot, because of the pandemic, demonstrators stayed in their cars.
We decided that it wouldn't be such a good idea to have a march because of the urge to get close to each other. So we did a rolling blockade.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was on hand to show his support. So was Winnipeg MP Leah Gazan.
What happened on this land was in a lot of ways the beginning of a powerful movement. Many movements have been inspired by the incredible activists, the community, the people who stood up to defend their land.
We talk in this country about reconciliation, and there will never be reconciliation in Canada in the absence of justice.
And even though the golf course development was eventually cancelled, the land struggle has never been resolved.
And this is intolerable.
The rolling blockade passed through a housing development Mohawks have been denouncing for years.
Under Canada's Constitution, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau could intervene and stop all development that's taking place here, and he refuses.
Today, many in the Mohawk community say they want the issue of the land given more attention than the standoff it created.
And I want people to remember that we are the peaceful ones, that the state has always been the one that has initiated the violence against us.
Dan Spector, Global News, Ganasatake.
Still ahead, remembering the massacre at Srebrenica, why families are still waiting for justice.
You're watching Global National.
A ceremony was held in Bosnia-Herzegovina today to mark the 25th anniversary of the Srebrenica genocide. Thousands of Muslim men and boys were killed by Serb forces on this day in 1995, near the end of Bosnia's war. Thousands of survivors normally take part in the service, but because of the pandemic, only a small number attended. Ceremonies were also held in Canada to mark this grim anniversary. More than 25,000 Canadians claim Bosnian descent, and many of them arrived in this country during or shortly after the Bosnian War. As Mike Drolet explains, they came here hoping to find a better life.
The photo is faded and well-worn, much like the memories Mirela Hodzic-Sivic has of her father Suleiman, one of over 8,000 victims in what's become known as the Srebrenica massacre.
He was a few days short of turning 27.
Suleiman was making a desperate attempt to escape the Bosnian Serb forces, who were rounding up and summarily executing Muslim boys and men. It would be 9 years before his remains were found in a forest grave.
And when I would go to sleep at night, I would actually imagine the scene of him coming back. I think my mom, she actually knew that he would never come back, but she never wanted to tell us.
By then, Mirela had emigrated to Canada with her mother and brother. She was the only one who spoke English, so it was up to her to do the interview with immigration and to set up bank accounts. She was 12.
Yeah, it was really, really difficult, but Canada has given us an opportunity to change our destiny, and we have definitely changed that.
Murder, extermination.
A quarter century after Srebrenica, history shows that 62 Bosnian Serbs were convicted of war crimes. Yet survivors are still waiting for the Bosnian Serb Republic to own up to charges of genocide and the forcible rape of thousands of Muslim women. It's those denials that spurred Windsor MP Brian Massey, whose visit to the mass graves left him shaken, to erect a monument in his hometown.
Hopefully sometime during the year, somebody will walk by and they'll see, they'll see the memorial and they'll ask questions about the look out in line, and then they'll remember and find out what took place. And that's one person stronger.
For the international community, including Canada, this anniversary is a reminder of failure. UN troops witnessed the massacre unfold, yet were vastly outnumbered and unable to stop it.
I think one of the legacies has been that countries have learned not to get involved, because once you're involved, you're responsible. So take a look around the world. Canada is not involved in much peacekeeping because they don't want to be present where war crimes are happening, and they don't want to have their troops at risk.
Last year, during a visit to Bosnia, Mirela's 5-year-old daughter Miriam asked to learn more about her grandfather and what life was like for Mirela at the same age. It's not a story any child should know, much less live through. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
Up next, the mass infestation that's threatening millions of lives. Swarms of locusts have been devouring crops across much of East Africa. It's the worst infestation seen in the region in decades and is part of a wider problem across many parts of Western Asia and India. But in the Horn of Africa, the swarms are threatening to make a food insecurity situation even worse. Here's Redmond Shannon.
Millions and billions of them. Desert locusts devouring crops, threatening livelihoods and potentially lives.
You'll find that almost all the tomatoes have been destroyed in this shape. So this is a loss that we are encountering at the moment.
The desert locust is normally a harmless, dull grasshopper, but under certain wet weather conditions, it makes a Jekyll and Hyde transformation into this ravenous yellow swarmer. 2 cyclones in the Indian Ocean in 2018 triggered highly unusual rains in remote areas of the Arabian Peninsula. Swarms multiplied and moved northeast to Iran, Pakistan and India, and south to war-ravaged Yemen and Eastern Africa. They are areas where tens of millions of people are already facing the threat of hunger.
East Africa, is extremely vulnerable. They've had 3 years of droughts. They have this year now floods and heavy rains. So they're already very sensitive to any additional shocks that might occur. There was a swarm earlier this year in northern Kenya that was 60 kilometers long and 40 kilometers wide.
The summer breeding season will see the problem increase. The weather could determine if this becomes a full-blown locust plague.
So an upsurge is kind of regionally based. So, what we're seeing now in East Africa, But, a plague then would be basically from West Africa all the way across to Southwest Asia.
The United Nations is raising funds to spray millions of hectares with pesticide. Some Indian authorities are using drones as an alternative to kill the locusts, but the chemicals can harm the environment and other insects. Scientists in Kenya are developing biopesticides and even agents that confuse locusts into eating each other. They are also advocating that people start eating them too.
We think it's something to promote so that a lot more people should engage in this practice rather than shying away, thinking that it is a primitive man's food.
Poetic justice, perhaps, but something that would barely make a dent in this enormous threat. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
A cat who disappeared 18 months ago in Victoria, BC, is back with his family and has quite the tale to tell.
Who is that? Blue? It's Blue.
This is the moment Blue was reunited with the Owens family and 7-year-old Hayden. He was discovered on July 2nd, 17 kilometers away from home. He hadn't been spotted since December of 2018. It took about 4 hours, a few traps, and some motion sensor cameras, but Blue was scooped up the next day. Blue has lost a few pounds, but he is sure making up for it now with unlimited treats and cuddles as he gets used to his surroundings. Cat always comes back. And that is Global National for this Saturday. I'm Robin Gill. Tonight, your Canada is out of this world. It's Comet Neowise flying over Abbotsford, BC, bright and early this morning. Hope to see you back here tomorrow, everyone. Good night.